Hello and welcome to the WeAreSC Recruiting Show. My name is Josh Ann and I'm here with Schrader today, here to talk all things USC recruiting. December is here. That means the early signing period is coming up too, and USC fans have a lot to look forward to with the hire of Lincoln Riley as the head coach. Scott, how are you today?
Yeah, doing good. It's been kind of a crazy, what are we on? This is Sunday to third. Oh gosh, it seems like it's been like one and a half days, right, Josh? But it's been 4 days. And things have been crazy, but man, we're gonna have a lot to talk about here in the upcoming weeks.
How about we get started with some of the movement that we've already seen, right? So with Lincoln Riley coming over to USC, a lot of the Oklahoma commits and Oklahoma targets there's been a lot of movement there. And one thing we've already seen is 2023 QB Malachi Nelson. He flipped to USC. Raleek Brown, the 5-star running back from Mater Dei, he decommitted. He's actually set to commit in an hour or so. He'll probably be committed by the time the show is up, but just a lot of movement. So what have you been hearing on that front?
Yeah, it did get off to a fast start with Malachi Nelson decommitting and then committing to USC the following day. And Malachi told me yesterday, first of all, USC was where he and Mekhi Lemon have always wanted to play. They just didn't want to play for the USC football program that was recruiting them previous to now. So now with Lincoln Riley coming to USC with Dennis Simmons, the wide receivers coach, USC was a no-brainer for Malachi. And the reason he made it happen so fast is he told me he understands how important it is to have a quarterback committed and what that brings with it as far as, other prospects that will start looking at USC. And he had already been contacted by a few guys, talking about Darius Clemens, who had actually visited USC or one of the top prospects in Oregon. He had hit up Malachi about interest in coming to USC. So, there's a lot of stuff that we're not going to be able to maybe report today because things are being kept really, really quiet until Lincoln Riley gets a chance to talk to recruits. After that, I think we'll start getting some more information. But yeah, that was a big start for USC getting a commitment from Malachi Nelson. And today we do believe that by the time we probably put this up, Raleek Brown will be committed to USC.
Yeah, and that'd be a big time splash for that class as well, considering that it's been a problem over the last few years for USC having these local 5-star, 4-star kids leave the region and go play in Oklahoma. But it's really interesting that with Lincoln Riley coming over now these kids don't have to compromise anything. The football aspect of it and the academic aspect that USC has, those things kind of come together with that hire. So I'm super interested to see, how much ground they can make up in just a few weeks here in the 2022 class.
We're already seeing some of it, right? It's kind of playing out for us on almost on an hourly basis. It seems like something. Last night, Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch visited Zion and Zachariah Branch. We feel USC's in a really, really, really strong spot with both those guys. And then he made it over to Cyrus Moss's house for an official visit. And, Cyrus is one of those guys that really, I think, wanted to go to USC again. I think what you touched on is that a lot of the guys locally from the West Coast, USC was not giving them a reason to come to USC. And so now they feel like they have that reason in Lincoln Riley. He was really probably one of 3 guys out there that could have made this kind of impact. But really, this program has done a 180 overnight. So Cyrus Moss was another one. He's coming for an official visit next weekend. We're going to start putting out a list of official visitors will be coming back. There'll be several coming back for their second official visit. Guys like Devon Campbell. I'm not sure. I think that Joshua Connolly will visit in January, but you're going to see some guys come for their second official visits, and that's going to be probably one of the more interesting components of this, like maybe even Michael Williams.
Yeah, that'd be huge. I feel like I haven't heard that name in a minute.
Yeah.
Right, considering all the things that have happened at USC over the last few months. But I think that, you brought it up. How big is that official visit weekend, not this weekend, but the weekend after? Are you imagining that's going to be huge?
Yeah, it could be just a ridiculous number of kids because they really have no choice. They scheduled this game, rescheduled the game with Cal for this weekend. This would be a vital official visit weekend if you really think about it. You could have guys this weekend, 10 guys next weekend. So I don't have an exact number of what it's going to be. I've just been told by a source at USC that the hotel tab is going to be large.
That does not surprise me. I think you put something up on Twitter of a huge crowd going around. Yeah, it's going to be, it's like you said, like with the early signing period just coming up around the corner, that's really the main weekend they can come, right? To meet the new staff and see where they stand with this staff. So it's going to be super interesting to see all that. One name I do want to touch on also is Domani Jackson, right?
Yeah.
Who recently decommitted, and then he puts out his top two of Alabama and USC the other day. With the uncertainty around some of the staff members, including Dante Williams, who he is close with, do you believe that USC still has a chance, regardless of what Dante Williams' status is?
Yeah, a lot of people thought when he decommitted that was it, and and it may have been, for all we know. It all depended on who was going to be hired as the next head football coach. And Domani's father was honest with me, saying, they had a very unimpressive official visit weekend when they did come a couple weeks ago, because there really wasn't a whole lot to offer. There were a bunch of coaches who knew they weren't going to be back. There were coaches that really couldn't tell them a whole lot. They didn't know anything about who the future head coach was going to be. So, but all that said, they were going to come back for another visit when the new coach was hired. So we do expect that to happen next weekend with Domani. And yes, I do feel like USC has a shot. Alabama, is a big draw. It's one of those schools you go visit and it's hard not to reconsider the school that you're committed to, especially with the way the USC program is. But Domani, I know, loves USC. He's a huge Dante guy. Dante and he have had a relationship for probably 3 years. But I think USC staying home. He's got guys at USC he's extremely close with. He's got guys at Modern Day that he's friends with that are likely going to end up at USC. We're talking Raleek Brown. We're talking CJ Williams. We're talking David Bailey, right? So I do think when it comes down to where that paper is going to have to be signed, I think Domani, I think USC is going to be a legit strong option.
Yeah, it's interesting that top two came out. I honestly got a feel for Michigan fans a little bit. They hosted him last week. He's over there. They beat Ohio State for the first time in a decade, and they still get cut. It's tough, man. It's tough out here for these five stars, but
it's a good program. It's like
it's a good program. They're top five. Yeah.
Yeah, there's reason for them to feel hopeful for somebody like Domani, because that's a school that he truly does love. But it's one of those situations where there's just so much going on, and I think in the end, now that, at least for now, USC has the perception and the appearance, for good reason, because of the hiring of Lincoln Riley and the guys they'll bring in on staff. I think that somebody like Domani is going to start looking like going, okay, I understand where USC was last week. I also understand where this program is probably going. And I think in talking to Malachi and Makai yesterday, they're like, imagine the Coliseum in a couple of years. And, then they're like, maybe even next year, and so there's that kind of thought process going through these kids' heads now.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought those two up. So you put out a picture on Twitter yesterday of those two visiting USC. I was actually on campus walking around. And I saw them too. They're on the visit. So they move fast, man. This staff is wasting no time getting these kids on campus. Makai Lemon and Malachi, their teammates at Los Al. So you would expect them to have high interest. Obviously, one's committed and one decommitted.
We expect Makai to be very soon. I would expect Makai Lemon to follow Makai very soon. I don't know about it's going to be this week, but I think it's going to be pretty soon. What's interesting is, we know Malachi and Makai have that really tight relationship. They're almost like family. Their families were together yesterday, and with Dennis Simmons, the wide receivers coach, and Gavin and Armand Hawkins. And they were up in the club tower at the Coliseum, just kind of looking down, taking everything in. So it's just going to be interesting to see where everything leads. Like you said, it's happening really, really fast, and it's going to keep happening really fast because it has to.
Right. Who are some other 2022 kids that we haven't mentioned yet that you would imagine? I'm sure there's a lot with a move like this. There's the reach has just expanded so much, right?
It has. Mm-hmm. It's even, we're not hearing a whole lot because there's a lot of people at USC that really don't know what's going on right now. There's really a select few people that really kind of are dialed in and are part of this process. That'll all change next week when more clarity is upon us here. But if you go by position, if you start with quarterback, Devin Brown committed to Ohio State. Right. I don't think that's going to, I don't think that's going to change now. I think he's now found where he's going. But the quarterback situation is interesting. Who will USC go after? Well, what if Caleb Williams ends up transferring to USC? I mean, that's a crazy thought. People, that thought, when most people's heads is like, God, that'd be just like insanely awesome. And some people were like, oh man, he's not going to beat out Jackson Dart. And you'll see him all. it's going to be interesting to see all the conversations back and forth with USC fans on that one, if that should happen. But, it could. So I don't even know if USC is going to really be all that concerned about a high school quarterback for the 2022 class. So, I can't tell you for sure. That stuff we'll learn as we go along. But, the running back, you got Raleek Brown. You've got Jaden Ott. Will USC continue to pursue Jaden Ott, or will they try and bring in Gavin Sawchuk, or will they try and get Javonte Barnes? Because Lincoln Riley was at Desert Pines, where Javonte Barnes does go to school yesterday. So, that's stuff we need to learn about. Sorry, we can't give you any clarity on that today. But, the running back situation at USC is pretty decent. What do you think? Is any chance Keontae Ingram comes back, Josh, before I go on with the prospects we're looking at?
Oh, man. I mean, if I'm Keontae Ingram, it's tough because I think he's really established himself as a lead guy this year. Like, he's shown that he can carry the load for an offense. And I think that as a running back, you need to capitalize on that because the more carries you get, it's weird that you almost like depreciate in value. I hate to put it that way, but that's how NFL teams look at it. Then again, you look at Lincoln Riley and his system, and he's familiar with him from his days at Texas. Like,
yeah,
if I'm him, I'm thinking, man, what if 1 year, an extra year, what could that do for me? It's gonna be tough to say. I think it's more likely he leaves. Yeah, we'll see.
But he's playing this week.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he is, but he would like to. But he was walking out to practice yesterday like he was hoping he would play. But yeah, could he do like a Rojo type deal, come back for another year and increase his draft stock a couple of spots? That's a fair question. But he did have a body of work at Texas that was pretty impressive as well. So there's plenty to look at there. But as we go on here, if we're talking offensive line, we're still talking about DJ Campbell from Arlington, Texas, 5-star offensive lineman from Bowie High School. Joshua Connerly from Rainier Beach, Washington. Mark Nabeau from O'Day High School in Seattle, Washington. We're looking at Jake Taylor. He's somebody that was committed to Oklahoma. I just don't see him flipping. But let me tell you what, if they can get that young cowboy in Los Angeles, that kid, he's like as country you could possibly get. But man, that kid would be literally a great fit anywhere. He would be probably one of the most popular players on any football team. So it'll be interesting to see if that can work out. But the offensive line guys, prospects that Lincoln was recruiting, we haven't heard anything about those guys. So those are kind of Ernest Green the third. Also, we have to mention him. So that's kind of like the offensive line targets. Receiver wise, they went from having 2 commits to 0. So it's kind of like, what do you do? And so we do know that Servite got a visit from Lincoln Riley day 1. So that was for T-Mac, obviously. And, we never know, could be Keon Burnett too. Again, we haven't heard about, what's involved there. Will T-Mac still come for his official visit December 10th, like originally planned? We need to find that out as well. But CJ Williams will visit this next weekend. And he is still a target for any USC fan wondering, is CJ Williams still a target for USC? Yes, he is. So that could be a commitment that could be coming in the near future as well for USC. I just think there has to be some communication between Lincoln and Williams and his family. Darius Clemens hit up Malachi. He's a kid that visited in June. I think you probably remember him. He's from Oregon. So there's interest from him now in USC. Beyond that, Kevin Coleman came for a visit. Is he still a top prospect for USC? Again, these are a lot of questions that we don't know. And I know people watching the show are going, can you tell us something you do know, Scott? But what we do know is that USC is going to get a lot of guys in this recruiting class they had no shot at 5 days ago. So we will keep you updated. Josh and I are going to try and do this. If Josh can't do it because of class, it's kind of crazy with school for Josh right now, but we will try and do maybe 2 or 3 of these a week to give updates. We'll be writing articles. We'll be posting updates on our message board. But to move on to position-wise, but before I do that, actually, who are some of the guys that you like at receiver? Are there some guys around the country you'd be like, hey, Lincoln, you ought to go take a look at this guy?
Man, I mean, so Scott, you and I were at Servite Mater Dei last weekend. The one thing about high school football is you want to be able to come there with no context and be able to pick out who the 5-star, 4-star guys are out there. And when I looked at T-Mac and I looked at CJ Williams, I immediately knew, those 2 guys are the ones with a bunch of Power 5 offers. Like T-Mac was out there playing defense and he had an interception that was crazy. His range is just unbelievable. He's an unbelievable athlete. And CJ Williams, he's just a solid receiver. kind of had that last game, the touchdown at the end there to really seal it. But yeah, those two guys I really like. The one thing that's interesting about receiver is the receivers from Oklahoma who have entered the transfer portal recently.
There you go.
They had two top guys, Jaden Hazelwood and Theo Weiss. I believe I'm saying his name right. Those two guys entered the portal recently. Do they come over to USC? What's the deal with that? I think that's really interesting to see with USC losing the two wide receiver commitments in the 2022 class that they already had, how they choose to fill out that room.
Yeah, you know, I think whether it's from Oklahoma or not, I do believe that, you know, USC could bring in a couple of high school kids and add a couple more transfers from maybe some places we're not even talking about yet. But obviously we need to start with the Oklahoma guys that are in the transfer portal. And Theo Weiss was pretty active receiver this past season. So excuse me. Now to the defensive side of the ball, again, you know, there are a couple of decommitments in Ephesians Prysock and Jaden Gould. And Jaden was one of those kids, you know, as somebody who went back to Bergen Catholic a few times and got to meet him and his family. That was a kid I have to say I was personally really hoping would end up at USC. Just an awesome kid from a great family. But, you know, it's just, we knew there were going to be some decommitments in this class. I actually was kind of surprised by that one. So who are they after? Is Gentry Williams going to be an option now? Gentry told me 2 days ago, I need to follow up again, that he was just in too much shock to even offer an opinion. So, you know, the reaction to Lincoln Riley leaving, I'm not sure it was maybe on the same level as Pete Carroll when he left USC, but kids were crying in San Antonio. I was there for the All-America Bowl game, and it happened day one of practices back there. And, you know, I had parents yelling at me and screaming at me to get Pete Carroll on the phone. I'm like, yeah, I'm not that guy. Sorry. You know, it's like, yeah, I'll be right with you on that. But, you know, it was a lot of emotion. We're seeing that from Oklahoma too. Oklahoma fans, Oklahoma players were disappointed. You know, at least, you know, it was kind of painful to watch that Brian Kelly audios meeting he had with his players. It was like he got done with that 4-minute. He was like, peace out.
Right. There's just like no not awkward way to do that.
No, there is not.
There's no not awkward way to do it. Like nobody wants to be there. It's awkward. It's weird. It's just the vibe is just. Of course, it's weird. I don't know. That's just my reaction to all of those like weird meetings.
I know it's just weird being at USC right now for the same exact reason, because it's like nobody knows what's going on there. But you know, if you talk about cornerbacks, honestly, I don't know where you look. We have Fabian Ross, who's still committed. So again, I think transfer portal is going to be hit, you know, pretty significantly. You know, and as we learn about maybe some names that Lincoln's going to go visit, and maybe have at USC for some official visits next weekend, the final weekend before December 15th signing day, you know, we'll let you know. But we do feel pretty good about Zion Branch at safety. So will there be another one added to the roster in this recruiting class? We don't know yet. So defensive line is the big question mark. And then, you know, I think Hero Kanu is now a top target. And Anthony Lucas, I think his interest was already there at USC. I think this will just pump that up a bit. I would expect Lincoln Riley to visit him before he gets back into Los Angeles. After that, I don't have a whole lot to offer. But Elias Ricks is somebody that I need to bring up as a cornerback prospect from the transfer portal. And I was just told, confirmed, you know, we had reported that USC was going to visit Baton Rouge today. They did. They visited Elias Ricks. I'm told Elias Ricks is expected to be in Los Angeles tomorrow. You know, the Ricks still own a house in Riverside County that they're renting out. So, you know, if they were to pack up and move from Baton Rouge to Los Angeles, you know, I don't know whether they can get back into the house they're renting out immediately, but there's family out here, and there's, you know, the transition to Los Angeles would be very, very, very easy for the Ricks. So stay tuned on that one. But, you know, after that, you know, we really don't have a whole lot to offer on prospects. We will put, you know, Cyrus Ross at linebacker. He's coming for Cyrus Moss, excuse me, coming for an official visit. I think junior Tui Halamaka from Alameda High School is still a target, because he was a big target for Oklahoma. You know, I think that was a school he visited at least twice. So I think you have that. And so there's just so many moving parts right now. But defensively, like who would be one or two of your dream prospects to bring in on defense?
Oh man, I mean, for me, the big one is Zion Branch, because of the fact that if you can get Zion Branch, you could also probably get his brother Zachariah, who I'm super high on. I'm a Dolphins fan. I watch Jalen Waddle all the time, and he gives me those vibes.
Yeah.
He's super twitchy, super explosive, a smaller guy. But for Zion, I'm thinking of that safety room with Xavier Alford and Kalen Bullock. If you can add a Zion Branch to that safety room, man, you got a lot of talent back there, a lot of young talent that, Alex Grinch and his staff can develop over time. And obviously, I think Domani would be huge too. Obviously, he's a 5-star talent, super elite. But the message that it sends, I think that we talked about this last year with Corey Foreman. But if you could keep the 5-star California kid home who was committed to USC, that sends a huge message to the country, right? That fence is being built again. So those are two guys I think from an actual football standpoint, and I guess like a more like storyline standpoint, that would be very important for USC to get.
Yep. All of this starts adding to the momentum, and it's building up. It's nowhere. Next weekend is when it's going to be off the charts. The energy that's going to be around USC next week when they have the collection of recruits on campus for official visits. But until then, we're going to try and do another one of these. USC's playing their final football game on Saturday. By Sunday, we're gonna know who's on staff and who's not from maybe the support staff angle. I don't think we're expecting any of the assistants to come back. I do know there are some assistants that definitely do want to come back. Mike Jinks being one of those, and Clay McGuire being another. I know there's talk about Bill Biedenbach coming from Oklahoma as the offensive line coach to stay with Lincoln for this will be year 6. But Biedenbach was hired by Bob Stoops, though, correct?
I believe so. He was already there, and then he was retained, and
he's an Oklahoma guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma gets a coach that might keep him there, but Clay McGuire, you could argue if you want to talk about the two coaches at USC that you could confidently say did a great job this season and their units absolutely improved significantly, it would be Mike Jinks, the running backs coach, and Clay McGuire, the offensive line coach. So it wouldn't surprise me if one of those guys comes back. I think Mike Jinks is universally respected and liked by everybody I talk to. And especially my guy, Chris Claiborne, loves Mike Jinks. So if Chris Claiborne loves Mike Jinks, that's all you need to know.
You think USC fans have heard that name before?
Yes.
Claiborne? Maybe
and we'll be talking about him. I just strongly believe Chris can't wait to come back to USC. So, we'll see. Obviously, for me personally, that would be a huge deal because I'm not sure I've ever been happier about a coaching hire than I was when they added him as a quality control analyst last year. So, if he comes back, he's a Trojan. When you talk to Chris Claiborne about USC, he's coaching at ASU. He still says we, and when he says we, he means USC.
Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's going to tell him not to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
nobody's going to stop him.
Yes, but just like what have you been observing the reaction to all this and the developments? I mean, what are your thoughts on all that you've seen over the last 4 days?
Just so much excitement. So I've never seen USC Twitter, this united. The amount of Twitter accounts that I've seen with some sort of variation of Lincoln Riley's face on my timeline, talking, interacting with me. The excitement from recruits, Hayes Fawcett is the busiest man in college football right now, doing all these like decommitment edits.
He is.
And then you have the decommits, right? You have like somebody decommit, and then you got the comments of the kids like, "Ooh, like where are we going? Let's talk business." All of that, and then there's just USC feels relevant again. USC feels like it belongs in these national conversations. And when you like turn on these like sports podcasts or shows, they're talking about USC. They're talking about Lincoln Riley and what they can do at USC. And USC was not relevant like that in the last couple of years. So there's this level of excitement and relevancy that hasn't been there. And it's been exciting to see.
Yeah, it was interesting just to hear some of the young guys talk about USC so differently. They've always thought what USC could be. And that was why USC was always, early on a place where kids said they wanted to go, or one of the schools they were very interested in. So now to hear them talk about USC the way they are is very interesting. But I do want to, things are going to get crazy, and they already have been getting crazy. And as much as we know about what's going on with USC football and USC recruiting, To be able to cover this to the degree that is going to impress subscribers and people that are following us at WeAreSC, you need help. And we've gotten a lot of help from Chad Simmons, our national recruiting director. We've gotten a lot of help from Hayes Fawcett. We've got who does these amazing edits for the kids. So if anybody's going to know what's going on with the kid, whether it's a top 3 list or a commitment or a decommitment, I guess we should add right this time of year, it's going to be Hayes Fawcett. And Jeremy Crabtree. There's Jake Evans, who produces our podcast here. He's amazing, very helpful. There's just so many people that have done a great job of helping us out. So we'll look forward to the next week or so. I guess 2 more weeks from yesterday will be signing day. So stay tuned, everybody, and we'll look forward to talking to you in a couple of days.
Yep. Sounds good.
Peace out.